This week I was super excited to talk to you about biological sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. We are still going to talk about biological sex, but I had to take it from a slightly different angle. Welcome back to my Thoughtful Thursdays video channel, where we talk about important topics both inside and outside the church. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed below and turn on your notifications if you'd like to see videos like these in the future. So, biological sex. In my last 3 episodes, we've been talking about gender, and I thought it was important to talk about what sex is, since I've mentioned and stated that gender is not the same thing as biological sex. I've spent hours this week delving deeply into complicated medical journals and scientific journals. 3 things that I have to say after doing all of my research. 1, science is amazing. I have always had a love of science. I find it absolutely fascinating. In a life long ago, I always wanted to be a doctor. I was the head of the Future Physicians of America Club in my high school. I was also a science Olympiad. I was kind of nerdy. And I was also in charge of the Medical Explorers program at Carle Hospital in Urbana. The second thing that I've realized is that I don't know everything. I don't pretend to know everything. In fact, I think we should all be very careful with listening to people who think that they do know everything. That's pretty dangerous. The third thing is also very clear to me as I started to make this video. There's no way that I can take biological sex and explain it to you, my viewers, in a way that everyone would be able to understand in between 7 to 13 minutes. I watched lots of videos that tried to do just that. And I have to say, I wasn't very impressed with any of them. They all seem to either mess something up or leave something out, which of course then allows for them to be murdered in the comment section. Well, I'm not about to be murdered in my comment section. I've got no time for that. I try and always set up my YouTube videos to be open in a way that they can't just be attacked by a harsh counterattacker. I take a great deal of pride in that. I work really hard to keep the trolls at bay. And we all know that trolls are gonna troll, but I try as hard as I can not to give them ammunition to shoot me with. Biological sex is such a hot topic right now that it's just asking for someone to beat me over the head with their facts that they saw in another YouTube video from Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro destroys transgender student. Look, if you want to watch videos of people talking really fast and bullying others while throwing around the word science, you'll find those videos out there. Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Dinesh D'Souza, Dennis Prager, Candace Owens, Tommy Lahren, the list goes on and on. The internet is filled with mean-spirited people who say horrible things to other people in a very calm demeanor. Their lives are all about creating division among people. The bolder that they can say something, the more controversial they are, the more clicks that they are going to get, the more ad revenue that they are going to get. Our human nature is drawn to the loud and the over-the-top. Way back from primitive humans, my mind instinctually goes to the scary because I had better darn well pay attention to that lion over there that wants to eat me rather than pay attention to these beautiful flowers that smell amazing. Our minds do the same thing online today as well. The more dangerous the video is, the more controversial the topic, the more clickbait in the title, the more people will watch, and the more that the content creators will get paid. Cha-ching! You'll see words like destroys, crushes, annihilates, humiliates, and there is always an other. Whether that be college students, trans people, liberals, feminists, Black Lives Matter protesters. Ben Shapiro is famous for saying this very catchy nugget: facts don't care about your feelings. And of course, that goes hand in hand with the ever clever and super deep MAGA tagline of F your feelings. In these videos, the other side is of course always snowflakes. And our society is so gross because people click on those videos and want to see that thing. It is bloodlust. It's like watching a person be torn apart by a lion back in the Colosseum. People used to go and watch that for fun. How gross is that about humanity, where we want to watch the weaklings be destroyed by a powerful creature? That's kind of weird. Then people watch those videos online and they become more and more radicalized, and they think that that is what living in this society is like. And it just gets worse and worse, and the more people watch those videos, the more they have this confirmation bias that they are right. In general, people want to make things so binary, either or, black, white, good or bad. I want you to know that I don't get paid to make these videos. I just want to make the world a better and loving and more compassionate place. After hours of scouring the internet and doing research on biological sex, I can tell you it is not as clear-cut as we have been led to believe. It simply put is not as binary as we'd like it to be. That is, of course, unless you look at the most narrow and rigid view of what sex is, as just being gametes, ova and sperm. But of course sex is more than just gametes. Of course sex is more than just ova and sperm. Most people today understand biological sex as being determined by chromosomes. You have 46 chromosomes, 23 from your mom, 23 from your dad, and 22 of those are in pairs, and you have one pair of those that is a special set of sex chromosomes. And in this understanding, if you have a pair that is XX, you are a female. If you have a pair that is X and a Y, you are a male. And to people who want things to be cut and dry, they are like, check and mate, you lose, suck on that sucker. Well, but chromosomes alone don't determine biological sex. That was biology about 70 years ago. However, we understand science a little bit more, and now we can see what's going on behind the scenes. Turns out, chromosomes is a part of it, but it's not the entire thing. Chromosomes are important, don't get me wrong. They aren't every part of it, however. And it is important to note that people can have many different combinations of sex chromosomes. You can, of course, have XX and XY. You can have XXX, or you can have XXXX. Some people only have one X. There's also an XXXXX. There is also an XXY and an XXXY and an XXXXY. Some people can be born XXYY, and then there's even an XYY. Now, some of those combinations are extremely rare, but I have to tell you that biologically speaking, chromosomes are not the sole determiner of sex. And we have to ask ourselves questions like this: is sex what a person looks like on the outside, or the science that can't be seen from within with the naked eye? Is it the phenotype, what can be seen? He has a penis. Or is the genotype what can't be seen? His chromosomes. You can 100% have the chromosomes XY and on paper be sexed as a biological male. However, have the phenotype of a female. It is in fact possible as well for a person whose chromosomes would tell you on paper that they were a male to have the phenotype of a female and successfully give birth to a child through IVF. It's been done before. Having a Y on your sex chromosomes does not guarantee the biological sex male. But see, you also have to look at genes. Genes have a ton to do with sex. For example, the SRY gene. A child born with XY that either lacks the SRY gene or has a non-functioning SRY gene will typically have female traits, like a vagina. But the SRY gene isn't everything either, because there are genes that control that gene. They come into play as well, and they have a lot to do with the determination of biological sex as well. So even up till now, it is not as clear-cut as we've been led to believe. But we haven't even gotten to one of the most important factors of biological sex: endocrinology. And I don't have time to get into how both hormones and their precise timing have to do with sex, but it's super important. And it's not as black and white as we've been led to believe. Once again, there are people in our society that want to fight this to the core. Instead of opening up and expanding our horizons, they want us to go back to a very rigid and narrow view of what biological sex even is. Thinking about Jesus' parable of the lost sheep from last week, I think that we should always shape our thinking and our practices around what is the most loving, compassionate, and merciful thing to even the smallest numbers of people. Because numbers-wise, it's no comparison. By far, the majority of people on this planet do not fit what we are talking about today. Absolutely, the majority of the people in this world are typical male or typical female. I don't think that anyone is going to argue against that. But we need to reframe our thinking and our actions, not based on the majority, but based on that smallest number. Think about it this way: the majority of people in this world are able-bodied, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have wheelchair-accessible buildings. It is so important in the church that we speak a truth not only to those that covers the majority of people, but that also opens us up to cover every person, even those in the world that are seen by the majority as the not typical. We form our practices not around the majority, but around the marginalized. We stand up for those who can't fight for themselves. Who are the outcast? Who are the lost and the least in our society? Who have we nudged intentionally or unintentionally from the flock because they were a little different? The God that I worship cares a great deal about this people group. And I'm kind of under an impression that Jesus cares a great deal about how we think and talk about the least of those that are around us and the marginalized. Right now in the church across the globe, there are kids who are growing up in youth group that are going to realize that they are gay. There are right now kids in churches that will grow up to realize that they don't fit into the typical mold of male or female. Women who grew up in the churches are going to go to the doctor because they are having a hard time conceiving, and they will find out that they are actually chromosomally XY. Are they in some way going to think that they are a mistake by God or a part of the fall because of what they learned back in Sunday school? As I shoot this video, there are doctors and parents somewhere sitting in a room trying to figure out if a child needs surgical intervention to make them seem more normal. And look, I know it can be easy to say, yeah, but that happens so few and far between. Why should I have to think about it or even change the way that I think or practice my faith? Well, I guess because I think Jesus cares about it a lot. He leaves the 99 to go after the one. He cares about the smallest of a population. He seems to care about those who are overlooked by our society. He seems to be truly compassionate towards those who are vulnerable and marginalized. I want to help build a world where followers of Jesus follow that model instead of watching YouTube videos nonstop of a jerk who annihilates a transgender college student snowflake just to get rich. I hope you want to help build that world as well. It's going to take a lot of work, but we can do better. Friends, that's all the time we have this week, but next week we're going to take a look at a little thing called Islamophobia. You won't want to miss it. It has devastating effects on both humanity and the church. It's very important. Join me back here next week, same time, same place.